Okay, so welcome to this session on the backup on using Windows Azure Recovery Services platform. So this traditionally replaces your backup solution for your on-premise. So in normally in all the companies they do backups on SAN, and they do backups on tape drives for their long-term storage strategy, right? So this backup solution actually replaces that infrastructure. So if you're looking at a long-term backup solution, you can use Azure Backup instead of having a SAN and tape drive backup environment in your company. So this gives you a long-term storage strategy, and it is ideally suited for companies who cannot afford that infrastructure, because the SAN and tape drive infrastructure is very costly. So you can opt for Azure Backup solution, which is a cloud-based backup service. So what you need to do is in your Azure portal, if you go to storage, you have something called as backup and site recovery. So this is what I'm talking about. So click on that, and it asks for a name. So I give some name. Okay, I give a name, something like Kiran BKP, and a resource group as usual, and a data center. So that's all I need. So I just say okay. So I'm creating something called as a recovery services vault. So as the name says, vault, right? It is like a safe where it's like a locker, right? It's like a locker which has a key, and you can configure that key from your on-premise. And what you can backup? You can backup any of your files and folders. You can backup your Exchange server. You can backup your SharePoint server. You can backup your SQL databases. You can backup your VMs, anything. So any of the infrastructure that you're backing up today, or the files that you're backing up currently, right? So you can back up all of that on Azure, right? So what I have done, I just created one recovery services vault called as Kiran BKP. So I'm going into that, and here we have an option, say add a backup. So I click on this plus sign, and it is actually a step-by-step wizard like thing. So it asks you where is your workload running. So if you say Azure, right now you can back up only virtual machines. That means whatever virtual machines that you're running in your subscription, you can back up to a recovery service vault, so that you can recover the VHDs at a later point of time if your VMs fail, or whatever happens to them. But if you're selecting on-premise, there are a lot of things that you can do. See, you can do file folder backup, you can do backup of your Hyper-V VMs, backup of your VMware VMs, backup of SQL databases, SharePoint, Exchange, system state. There are a lot of things that you can do. So I say files and folders, a simple backup of files and folders. I say prepare infrastructure. So it shows me some step-by-step instructions. The first step is installing an agent software on the machine from where I want to do the backups, right? Let's say if you have 2 or 3 servers from where you want to do the backup, you need to install this agent software on those machines from where you want to trigger the backups, right? So you need to click on this, and it will take you to a link. It will download a file, right? This is a simple installer, so it's around 40 MB. So let me open the downloaded file. Okay, I'm installing the agent which I downloaded, and the installation is in progress. And what I need to do next is I need to download the credentials file. So this will be the file which tells the agent that which recovery service vault you need to connect to. So it is actually a simple file which you need to upload on the agent side, right? So this is actually a simple file which gets downloaded if you click on this, and what you would have is your subscription ID, and then a big certificate uh, which is called as a management certificate, and this is required for the client to upload the data to the recovery service vault. So I downloaded the agent and I downloaded the certificate file, so both are ready with me, right? So my installation is going on. Once this is done, what I need to do, I need to say register on my local machine. So now it asks me for this vault credential file. So this is the file I downloaded. I say browse, and I point to that file. Now it identified the backup vault, it knows which region and the subscription ID. Say next, and this is the most important step, passphrase. So passphrase is like a password for your backup, right? Now this passphrase is not stored anywhere. When I say that, when you are creating a backup, this passphrase should be remembered by you. What happens if you forget this passphrase? You lose your backup. So you see a small disclaimer here on this screen. It says that Microsoft does not save or manage this passphrase. You need to remember this, or you can back up to a USB drive. So let's say I enter one password here, right? Let's say I enter one password here, okay, and I say generate passphrase, and I say, let's say I want to store it to one of the USB drive. So let's say this, I call it as my USB drive. So to this folder it is going to backup. So that folder will have the backup of my the password. So in case if I forget the password, you can use the text file. So it's not yet generated, it will be generated. So there will be a small text file in this one. So you need to keep this folder somewhere safe. So this is your only backup copy of your password. So in case you forget that password which you gave there, you cannot recover the data. That means whatever you are saving from this computer, right, you will not be able to recover if you forget that. So this is more important. So it is still doing the register. Okay, now if you go to this folder, you will see one small text file, and this is your encrypted password. Whatever password that you gave is encrypted like this. So you keep this text file somewhere safe, so that when you forget the password, that text file can be used for recovering the password. So this is the console which I see for registering my backups. Okay, so I open this, and I go to the schedule backup option here. Okay, and this is also a step-by-step thing. Here I can select what to backup, right? So before I go into this, I will just walk you through a couple of features of this solution, right? So this backup solution has some advantages that will help you when you're doing the backup to the cloud, right? So all the backups that it is doing are automatically compressed. That means the files are shrinked so that the bandwidth is saved, or the storage or space is saved. That means if you are backing up documents or any other text type of files, it will automatically be compressed, right? And incremental backup. Incremental backup means let's say today you're backing up one of the folder which has 10 files, and tomorrow when the backup automatically schedules the backup, if any of the 10 files have not changed, it will not trigger a backup because there is no change since yesterday, right? So let's say there is one file which has changed. Out of the 10 files, only one file has changed. So what the backup solution will do, it will back up only that changed file, because it doesn't make sense to transfer all the 10 files again. So it will transfer only the file which has changed since the last backup, right? So that is one way of saving your bandwidth and data. And the next thing is disk deduplication. Deduplication, I will give you one example. So this is similar to your Exchange Server functionality, where you are sending an email to group of people, but there is one person who is present in multiple distribution lists. Let's say if one guy is present in all the distribution lists that you have marked, but when you send the email, the person will receive only one copy, though he is present in 10 distribution lists which are there in that email thread, or though you mark him 10 times in CC or BCC or wherever, he will receive only one copy, because your Exchange server is doing the deduplication. It will check the sender, receiver, the subject, and all those attributes and determine whether this email need to be sent to the inbox or not, right? So that is the same concept which is applied here. That means when it is backing up a file from a location, it checks whether the same file exists in this particular folder again. That means, let's say you're doing a backup of your D drive, and there are several folders in the D drive, right? But there is one PDF file which is there in all the different folders, right? Now when Azure is doing the backup, or let's say the agent is doing the backup, it will not transfer that PDF file more than once. That means, let's say if folder 1 has the PDF file, folder 2 has the PDF file, folder 3 also has the same PDF file. Now when it is doing the backup of folder 1, it will transfer the PDF file. When it is doing the backup of folder 2, it will not send that PDF file again. So how it knows that whether that is a duplicate copy? It checks multiple attributes of that file. That means file name, file type, when it has changed, what is the file size, all these attributes it checks, and it will not transfer the duplicate copy, though it is present in different folders on the same volume. If you are backing up the whole volume, then it checks for the duplicates, right? That is one thing. And security, of course, it does encryption when you're transferring the content. And network throttling, you can mention how much of bandwidth to use. So if you're on a slow bandwidth connection, your backup agent will not eat up all your bandwidth, so that other applications which are running on your network will not suffer when your backup is running, right? So all these are highlights of the backup solution offered by Azure, right? Okay. But there are some companies who already use System Center Data Production Manager. It's actually an enterprise tool for managing the backups in the companies. Companies are using this already. If you are using this software, you don't need to install this agent software which we installed and do the backups. You can schedule the backups directly from the System Center Data Production Manager. If you're already using that, you don't have to download and install this agent software. But if you don't use this System Center Data Production Manager, you need to install this agent software. What we did just now, right? We download the agent tool from the link here, and then we installed it on the computer where we need to do the backup, right? Okay, so this is what we did. We signed up to the Azure portal, we created a vault, we downloaded the agent, we installed it, and we registered it. Now we are doing this fourth step, configuring the backup. That means now I want to select what I want to backup, right? So I go to add, it shows me all the folders and files available on this machine, right? So I will select one simple file for a backup, and you can do up to 3 backups in a day. That's the maximum as of now. So let's say I want to do a backup at 12 a.m. I want to do a backup at 5:30 p.m. I can do a backup at 11:30 p.m. So it's up to you how many backups you want to do. So there is no limitation on the number of recovery points, but there is a limitation on how many you can do in a day. So max in a day you can do only 3, up to 3 max, right? So for instance, right now at 6:46, right, I can do a backup at 7 p.m. scheduled backup. So I'll say next. Or you can do weekly backup. So you want to backup only, right, once in every week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, right? So you want to do a backup every Saturday. You can do something like this. Put it like, do it every week at 7 p.m. So I say next, right? So if you want to do daily backup, you can do max of 3 backups. Okay, retention policy is, it will, you are telling Azure to how many days you want to maintain the backups. That means retention. So if the daily backups, by default you mentioned it as 180 days. You can reduce it. Let's say I want to keep my daily backups up to 3 months. I want to keep my weekly backups for, let's say, I can say 52 weeks. That means 1 year. So it depends on my requirement. So my client says that daily backups, retain it only for 3 weeks, or let's say yearly backups you can retain it up to 10 years, say, right? So it depends on the requirement. If your client says that I want to do backups or retention as per this, you have to select these options, right? So it is simple requirement driven. Okay, so this is how do you want to transfer the data. That means automatically over the network. That means the system network connection will be used for transferring the data. So there is an option called offline backup. This one requires you to send the hard disks to Microsoft for transferring the data to the Azure data center. That means if a company has tons of data which cannot be sent on the network, right, over the internet, which is practically not possible, then they have an option to send the hard drives to Microsoft data center, right? So that is called as an offline backup process, right? So you have to pay separately for that. So that is called as a Azure import export service, where you can send your hard drives packaged to Microsoft data center. They will dump all the data to the storage account which you mentioned, and they will return the hard drives to you. And the reverse is also possible. Whatever data that you have on cloud, you can ask Microsoft to dump into the hard drives and send it to you. That way is also possible. So both are chargeable again, right? So now since my file is only simple file, that means only one single file or one single drive, I want to say backup automatically. I say finish. Now it is creating a schedule. The schedule which I selected daily 7 p.m. right? So it created a schedule. Okay, so now okay, so 6:49, so we have to wait for 10 minutes for the backup to trigger. So after at 7 p.m. today, one backup will be taken of the PDF file which I selected, right? If I want to do an on-demand backup, that means I want to do a quick backup immediately, I will say backup now. So there is an option called backup now, which I say backup. Now it is doing an ad hoc backup. That means it is doing an on-demand backup. Okay. So now it is zipping the PDF file, and it is trying to transfer the data over to the Azure Recovery Service Vault, whatever vault that we selected, right? And if you go to the Azure portal, to the Recovery Service Vault, you cannot see the file from here, but you can see what is being backed up and what is the status of it, right? Okay, so you can see that one computer is registered for the backup and one backup is taken now at this particular time, right? So you can see the status of the backup, but not the file itself. You cannot see the data from here, right? So that is one thing. So the backup said it is completed successfully, right? Now you can recover the data on the same machine where you did the backup, or you can recover on a different machine. So on a different machine, when let's say the machine from where you took the backup is crashed or burnt out, right, and you want the data backup on a second machine, right? So what you can do is you can install the same agent software on the second machine and go to this option, recover data, and select another server. So if you select this server, it will allow you to get the recovery volume and everything from the backups that you did from this computer. It will show all the recovery points available. That means if let's say you did backups every day, right? So 1, 2, 3. So all these backups will be shown here. You can go to the respective backup slot. So this is like a system restore. You have the multiple recovery points available. You can select which backup you want, right? So you can select that and say mount. Now the backup is being taken like in the format of VHD, right? So when it is retrieving, it will retrieve and mount it as a separate drive. So let's say you took the backup from D drive, right? D drive from this location. So when I say recover data, it will not overwrite this particular file, right? So it will simply create one temporary drive here, as you can see here, right? It created one temporary drive and it is showing my backup files. So it is, I need to copy from this particular temporary drive to the location where I want it. So it does not recover automatically to the original location. It will simply mount it as a temporary drive, right? Okay, and this is available for 8 hours. So after that it will automatically unmount. That means this temporary drive will be available for 8 hours. So you can copy the data that you recovered from the cloud and you can end it. Or if you want to recover from a different this thing, so this recover data you can do on a different machine as well. I'll show you that option. So you say recover data and say another server. So this option you use it when you are recovering from a different computer. Let's say the computer, my current laptop is actually gone now and I don't have the data with me. So what I can do, I can install this agent software on some other computer and select this another server option and I select the vault credential file. So what I need to do, I need to open the Azure portal again and I need to go to the properties and I need to get the vault credential file from here. Go to properties and get the vault credential file. It will download the file again. I have to give that particular file to the recovery agent, and this way I can recover the data on another computer. And one more thing is, if you are giving the vault credential file, in the next step it will ask for the passphrase. Okay, now it says no backup server found because this is the same computer I did the backup from. So if I have done the backup from a different server, it would have fetched it. So in the next step, it will actually ask me for the passphrase. Passphrase is the password which I gave for creating the backup, right? So while recovering on the same computer, it did not ask me for the password, but if I want to recover on a different computer, it will definitely ask me for the password. So I should have both the vault credential file as well as the password for recovering the data, right? So that is one aspect of it. So when you are doing the backup, so if you are selecting only files and folders, this simple agent tool will do the task for you, right? And if you have multiple computers for triggering the backups, you need to install this tool on multiple computers. But for instance, if you have hundreds of computers from where you want to take the backups, this is not a scalable solution. That means you cannot afford to have a backup agent on all 100 machines and do the backups from there. So instead what you can do is you can go with System Center Data Protection Manager, which will give you a centralized backup solution. That means you install this tool on one single server machine, and from there you can schedule the backups of all the machines. Or if you cannot afford that license, what you can do is you can download, or let's say if you want to do any other backups other than files and folders, your backup agent will not do the job. You need something called as Azure Backup Server. So this is an alternative solution for people who don't have the System Center Data Protection Manager. So you need to download this software, which is around 3 GB. So this requires a dedicated server. So you need to install this on one dedicated machine on the same network, and then from there you can schedule backups of files and folders. You can schedule backups of SQL Server. You can backup your Hyper-V or any of the local workloads that you have. You can backup to the recovery service vault. Same recovery service vault will do, right? If you have only files and folders, this simple backup tool will do the purpose or will fit the purpose. But if you have SQL Server backups or SharePoint Server backups, you would need this Azure Backup server for you, right? So you need to download and install it on a dedicated machine from where you can trigger the backups, right? Okay, so I'll pause for any questions. Okay, now other than doing backups, there is an option called as site recovery. So other site recovery simply means you can create a failover for your existing on-premise environment. You can create a DR environment using the recovery service vault, right? So a DR environment could be for any of your servers, any of your existing virtual machines, or any of your existing servers which has applications running. So you can do a a failover from one Azure region to another Azure region, or one on-premise region to another cloud region. That means if your workloads are running on one physical data center, and you can have your DR environment in Azure, so that configuration can be done using this recovery service vault. So the option that you need to use is replicate. So you go to replicate and you select the source. So select on-premise. So it says you need to prepare your infrastructure. So first you need to define what is that you want to do the backup, right? So you go to site recovery infrastructure. So you define what kind of servers you have, and what kind of network mapping you have, and all that you define it here, right? So if you have a system center VMM, that is a virtual machine manager, you can actually add that server here, and you need to follow the steps which are mentioned here, and you can easily register that server and then have the recovery environment in Azure. That means if you have a server which is very critical for you, which is running in on-premise, you can have a backup of it running on Azure. And what happens when the on-premise server goes down? Your DR environment automatically kicks in, right? So that is also one more feature which is available with this recovery service vault. So other than doing just the backups, you can also configure the site recovery part of it. So site recovery is actually an exhaustive concept, so I just wanted to touch upon so in this session. So this is actually a very exhaustive session. So this is useful when you're taking the architecture exam. So 7534 is the architecture exam for Azure. So in that exam they will actually ask about this site recovery and all that. But for the admin exam, the 7532, this backup service will do. So you can simply understand what this backup can do, and how this can be done, right? So if you have only simple files and folders, you can use this Azure Recovery Service Agent tool. If you have other workloads, other than files and folders, that means your SharePoint server or SQL server or Exchange server you want to backup, you will need the Azure Backup Server tool. Or you can backup using the System Center Data Protection Manager, which is already there in the market, for people are using for quite some time. So if you already have this license, then you don't need to install any of these tools. So that system itself, I mean this is a Microsoft product, so that itself has the capability to back up to our recovery service vault, right? Okay, so anything that is backed up, right? So anything that is backed up is protected against failure, right? So because you are doing the backup for your mission critical data, so you need not worry that the data will be safe, or is it available always? Yes, it is available always. And how much you can store, there is no limitation on how much you can store, because you are simply taking storage as a service, and it is horizontally scalable. That means if you are storing 100 terabytes today and you want to store in some more 100 terabytes, you can do that without any extra configuration, right? So that is one good thing. That means you don't have to create multiple recovery service vault when you are running short of data. That is different with storage account, right? The storage account, the maximum you can store is 500 terabytes. You cannot store more than that. But in recovery service vault, there is no such limitation. You can store infinite data. That means it will automatically scale as you store, right? So that is one big advantage of using the recovery service vault. And the charge is the for the amount of information you are storing, right? If you go to the pricing calculator, storage backup, so charge is purely for the amount that you are storing. So Azure Backup, it is they are charging 600 rupees for 500 GB, right? Only one instance, and mine is South India. Okay, so charge is no different. So they are charging 600 rupees for 500 GB, right? So that's how it is. And what else? And one more thing is, before you delete the recovery service vault, that means if you don't, let's say you are using the trial account and you are done with the practice and you want to delete this, so before you delete it here, you have to unregister the backups. That means whatever backups that are registered should be unregistered. So you have to open the Azure Backup agent which you have installed on the machine and unregister it. Okay, here it is. So I open the console. So you see this, you can change the schedule or you can stop it. So you have to do this thing. So you have to do stop this backup and then you have to proceed. So I'll say finish. So now it asks me for a security pin. So you can generate this pin from the portal. So this is a security measure just to prevent any accidental deletions, right? So somebody who is doing an unregistered or backup, it will ask for the security pin. So you have to go to the Azure portal, click on generate here from properties and copy this pin and enter it here. So this is valid only for 5 minutes, just like an OTP. So now I unregistered my backup, right? Now I can go ahead and delete my vault. So if I don't unregister the backup, you cannot delete the vault. It will fail. So if you try to delete the vault, it will simply say that there are active backups scheduled for this. First unregister that and then come back and delete this, right? So that's how it works. So you have to unregister the backup from your agent tool and then delete the vault. Okay, so that is one. And other than this, there are many other solutions which we will not learn, but good to know. There are SoftNAS, AdaVault. So all these are third party. So this one is Microsoft solution. So this one and this one, this is third party. This is from NetApp company. So this is also a backup solution, right? So there are different features, right? So if you are more interested about using this third party, you can go with this SoftNAS solution. So this is free for 1 month. So yeah. So if you're already familiar with these solutions, then probably you can use these solutions also. But this one is from Microsoft. And for charge for this one is, of course, I told you it is for the amount of information that you are storing, right? So that's one thing. Okay, so yeah, offline backup, right? I'll just show you how to create that. So if you go to, yeah, so this is the option, import export job. So if you want to do an offline backup, first you have to create a import export job in the portal. So what do you want to do? You want to import into Azure. You'll say my something, my company, and then next you will mention which storage account you want to use for dumping the data, right? And then the next step, it will show the return shipping address, right? On the final fourth step, it will show the Microsoft data center details. So based on what you selected, for the region, it will actually show the data center address, right? So if you have done that, then you have to courier the hard drives to the respective data center mentioning the job number. So once you complete this, the 4-step process, you will get a job number which you have to use for sending the hard drives over to Microsoft data center, right? So that is one way of importing data into Azure. Or export also, same thing, you can create an export job. Okay, so that is one more thing that I could recollect for this. So any questions, Sai?
No, Kiran.
Okay. And one more thing is, once you delete the vault, right, the files are available for next 2 weeks. That means even after you delete the vault, the files are available for 2 weeks. You can recover it from the agent. You can open the agent tool and recover your data for 2 weeks. After that, the data is deleted, right? So for next 2 weeks you can access your data. That option is there. So unlike storage account where you delete the storage account and all the blobs and file shares are gone, this one has that one more extra feature. So even after deleting the vault, the data is available for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, so that was about the backup and recovery. Okay, so should I start the cloud service, or shall we do it along with Uday?
Yeah, as you wish, Kiran. Yeah, I think it is. You're feeling more cold today.
Yeah, my nose is blocked, of course, but I am thinking that cloud service is an important concept. So
Okay.
I
So
think that if Uday is
when
there in the
Uday
call,
starts,
yeah,
we'll do that.
so he will be there on Monday, right?
Yeah, he will be there on Monday.
Okay. So what are the things remaining for